Do you see a difference with this younger generation?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
This is a job that if you think you're never going to get into a fight and you're always going to be able to use your words, you're wrong. You're going to get in a fight. You need to be prepared for that. And two, we are so heavily pushing de-escalation. I think we've pushed it to an unsafe point where it's time to handle business and our officers are not seeing the signs and they're trying to de-escalate and they are causing a hesitation in themselves. When you cause hesitation, you increase injury and the potential for injury. So all of this hesitation that I'm seeing is we end up using a higher use of force than if we would have handled business when we could have up front.
Can you introduce yourself for me, please?
Yes, I'm Erik Lavigne. I am the founder of the podcast Two Cops, One Donut. I've been in law enforcement 18 years. Let's see what else. I've been military. I also am a active police officer.
Okay. So, Erik, before we start getting into your background and your career and everything else, tell me about your podcast.
Okay, so the podcast is a idea stemming from my master's thesis. I went to Texas Christian University, TCU, go Horned Frogs, and it is a dual master's of criminology and criminal justice. So there's a little more credibility when you put the criminology side to it versus criminal justice. All the cops out there will know what I'm talking about. But the idea came from, we had an incident at my department, which will go unnamed for I don't want to get fired reasons. But we had an incident where we were using social media to try to help catch bad guys. And this was a new concept at the time. So we're talking like Facebook came out in 2009, I think, but Facebook groups didn't really start coming out until 12, 14, somewhere in there. When the groups were new, we decided to create a neighborhood group. This was before neighborhood apps and all that stuff. So we created a neighborhood group and we were updating the community. It was like, hey, you got kids pulling door handles over here. Hey, this person's wanted. Hey, somebody knocked over Miss Johnson's, flower pots, whatever. And they could do the same. They could put stuff. So we were communicating. We were using social media in a new way. Well, one day we had kids pulling handles. We didn't know if they were adult. They could have been 16. They could have been 24. They were in that age range. And posted their pictures after a citizen sent them to us. Hey, these kids, I got them on camera pulling handles.
Well, wait a minute. Pulling handles. What do you mean?
Burglarizing vehicles. So
Okay.
they're going around to cars and pulling on door handles.
Okay.
And so we were like, oh, okay, well, let's get it out. Let's use the Facebook group thing and get it out there. Well, somebody that lived in that neighborhood was an attorney and then complained about it to the chief. And the chief pulled us off social. He's like, across the board, no social media. No rhyme, reason, nothing. And so we're like, okay, dang, that sucks, because that was a really good tool that we were just figuring out. At the time, the only social media presence you would see with cops was like petting puppies or, playing basketball with some kid in the street. It was always a propaganda piece.
Yeah.
And it drove me insane because you're not winning over the people you need to win over. You're just placating people that are already pro-cop.
Right.
So the neighborhood threw a town hall meeting, like an emergency town hall meeting, and told the chief that he had to be there. And they brought the media with them. And like this 70-something-year-old lady stands up and she's like, if I'm on social media, he needs to be on social media. You guys work for us. This is what we want. This is what you need to do. And that stuck out to me and, resonated with me. So as that went on, that idea just kept ringing in my head. I'm like, she's right. She's right. She's right. And I was going for my degree at the time. And I had to start coming up with an idea for a thesis. Well, I started saying, hey, social media is a valuable law enforcement tool that is underutilized. So that was the question. Like, is it something that we should be using? So I went down that rabbit hole, asked, you put out your research and you're asking your sample pools and whatnot. And the numbers were like ridiculous. it was like in the 90 percentile, which is unheard of for statistics. It like overwhelmingly cops thought we should be using it. Overwhelmingly, the citizens thought we should be using it. But the cops were afraid to use it because of the red tape, getting fired, no training on this stuff. So that was where the idea started to stem from. And then I listened to Joe Rogan's podcast all the time.
Yeah.
And he's always trying to get his comedian buddies to have a podcast. He's like, you should have a podcast. And he put out these stats. He goes, there's only like 1,000 of us. And he said, and of 1,000 of us, 100 of us are funny. And he said, and out of the 100 that are funny, he's like, we could all do a podcast and every single one of them would be different.
Yeah.
And he's like, but people would listen and tune in. I goes, what if I applied that to policing? There's 750,000 of us, approximate.
Yeah.
How many of us got a voice out there at all? Maybe 5 at the time.
Right.
You just like Officer Daniels, Mike the Cop. I can't even think. Donut Operator's another one.
Yeah.
So it wasn't many at the time.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Donut was out yet, but he was one of them. So I was like, man, what if I created a podcast? But how, you start going down that thing. How do I do it? I don't want to be a dancing TikTok cop. That's not me.
Yeah.
And I don't think it helps anything. The point of the podcast is to bridge that gap with people that aren't so cop friendly.
Yeah.
Instead of being propaganda. So I don't want to cop-splain stuff to people, but I want to educate because I have an educator's heart. So in education, that's how we bridge that gap. That's where I came up with the concept of bridging the gap through humanizing education and perspective. So that was the 3-tier pillars of my idea.
Yeah.
And I just rolled with it. I was doing both sides of the house too. I wasn't just I wanted to interview SWAT guys. I want to interview judges. I want to interview, prosecutors.
Right.
Whoever is on the criminal justice side, but I also wanted to talk to community leaders, felons, people that were wrongly convicted. That's been some of my more popular stuff, is talking to a couple guys. One was Derek Hamilton, who was wrongly convicted of homicide. Turns out that the detective in New York was corrupt, and 27 of his homicide convictions were being overturned after him. Wow. So there was that. And I also wanted to kind of throw my humor in there because I like to be funny. I think I'm funny. My wife will tell me I think I'm funny. So trying to do a little bit of all that. And then it just turned into a monster from there. So did the podcast, did that for a couple years. And then I started getting into doing the shorts and the reels, trying to put out like, hey, here's this police situation, and doing reactions to them. And good, bad, or indifferent, like take it for what you will, but I'm going to give you an educational side to whatever it is I'm talking about, which is turn some cops against what I do, because I will call out bad cop work. If you're doing bad police work, I'm going to call it out.
Right.
But I'm going to put an educational twist on it.
Yeah.
If you are demanding ID because you were requested to the scene by dispatch, that doesn't give you a right to ID people. But you hear cops saying, oh, I was called here. I didn't just show up here. I was called here, so I need your ID. Well, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
So there's some bad training going on out there. If cops are going to listen to anybody, it's going to be another cop. They're not going to listen to Joe Blow citizen that's telling them the same exact thing. So it's kind of a 2-tier thing. I started out wanting to educate the citizens, but I end up educating cops a lot more.
What is the complaint from the cops when you do something like that?
That I don't like cops, that I'm anti-cop.
Yeah, you're a cop, but you're anti-cop.
Yeah, and that I'm a traitor. And what other things have I heard from? I need to surrender my badge immediately.
Really?
Oh man, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me ask you some questions. So, the initial complaint from that attorney, what was the deal with that? What was his complaint about you using
that they
social
were
media?
juveniles, and we were showing juvenile pictures, which in the state of Texas, where I'm at, is against the law from the law enforcement standpoint. Okay. But I from what they were doing on social media, I still don't. I'm not a lawyer, so I still don't know the legality.
Yeah.
Maybe as cops, we can't do that, but technically the citizens posted it and we just said be on the lookout.
Right.
So
after you had that town hall, did the chief change his mind about the social media?
No, but that chief ended up leaving the department.
Okay, so
Not too terribly long after.
but now with your department, are you using social media?
Yeah, cops are using it. They are not using it, like, that's why I'm not mentioning my department.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
general
yeah.
orders now.
Yeah.
As long as you're following those, you're good. And one of those things is not making the department look bad. So that can be a catch-all.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful on what you say and what you do.
So they don't mind you. Your chief doesn't mind you doing your podcast. Just don't.
Yes, just keep them separate.
Okay.
That's really all it is.
Even though you may have controversial stuff, he's okay with you doing that.
Yeah, because he understands. One, he trusts me.
Mhm.
We talk. We're friends,
Right.
and he understands where I'm coming from. And then they know, and I've made it clear, like, if I overstep and something's wrong, I'll take it down. Like
Okay.
that, because that's not my intent.
Yeah.
Again, my intent is education, humanizing perspective. That's really the bottom line. I'm not trying to be controversial or anything like that. I'm trying to teach on everything that I do.
Right.
So.
Your master's degree that you got, is there a reason for that? I mean, I think that's above and beyond. Is there a reason for that?
There's a couple reasons.
Okay.
One, I had the GI Bill from the military.
Okay.
So I didn't want that to go to waste.
Okay.
Two, it was local and convenient.
Okay.
Timing was right. Didn't have a lot going on. And so kids were still young enough that we didn't have to take them to and from places all the time. So I had the time.
Oh.
And then the third is I plan on trying to be a chief somewhere or a sheriff.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm trying to reach the top to keep expanding upon all these teachings and stuff that I like to put out there.
Okay.
And yeah, and be an example for my kids.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions though for you. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned you wanted to eventually be a chief, because it's like, I mean, you're still working. So if you had a goal, what's your ultimate goal? With your career, what would you like to end? Would it be a chief somewhere?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
Mainly because the problems I see in law enforcement,
Okay.
I think are fixable, and I have not seen what I guess it's just arrogance.
Okay.
I think I can do it better.
Okay.
Yeah. If I see problems. I think one of the major problems is frontline supervision. Frontline supervisors not supervising their troops properly.
Okay.
And that would be one of my main.
Is that a lack of leadership?
That's a huge lack of leadership.
Okay. So a question I always ask, because you're a sergeant right now, is do you think leadership is innate or learned?
I think you are capable of learning some leadership qualities.
Okay.
Especially if you have a supervisor that is in tune with their people. So like my lieutenant, for example.
Yeah.
He does not pull punches with me at all. And that's my style. I like that he does that with me.
Right.
And he tells me, hey, you're fucking this up. And do you swear in your
Yeah,
podcast?
yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Sorry. He's like, hey, you're fucking this up. You need to do this and that. Roger that. Like, that's what I need.
Yeah.
I don't need the, man, the guys are kind of saying this and I'm kind of seeing that. Like, that's leadership in a nutshell in policing these days. Nobody wants to step on anybody's toes. And maybe that's my military background. Maybe that's my leadership qualities that I was inherited with. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's too many supervisors out there that want to be friends with their people, and they don't want to. They just want to show up, collect a paycheck, and go back home, and then hope that they don't have to deal with anything major, and that everybody can just show up, do the job, and go home. And I'm not that way. When I show up, I need to be teaching you something. We need to be going over case law every day. We need to be working out every day. We need to, this is a profession. So every single day needs to be that same energy. That's my job as a supervisor. I have to be the vessel for them to improve. Wherever they want to go in their career, that's my job to help them get there.
How do you fix the leadership problem that you see though? If you had people, is it one, realize don't promote those guys in the first place, or maybe you see something in them, they can be good leaders. How do you fix that problem?
That's so complicated and deep because it's so It's different everywhere.
Right.
So like promoting at my spot is a test.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. If I test high, guess what? I'm going to be one of the next supervisors. You can't really stop it.
So let's say you're the chief of unknown PD. How would you promote people within?
I like a testing system mixed with a 360 review.
Okay.
So if you are, let's say it depends on the structure of your department, but let's say you're a standard structure where you got officer, corporals or detectives, then sergeant, because sergeant's the first line supervisor that you'll touch.
Okay.
I want a test to show they got the job knowledge, and then I want a 360 review. So the 360 review would be anybody that's supervised you in the past.
Okay.
So that will be a panel.
Okay.
And they will review and talk and discuss how you were working under them. And then anybody that's worked with you will be also in a panel. So the people that you worked side by side, if you're an asshole all the time,
yeah,
and a lone wolf and not a team player, and that would be a factor. It's not going to be the factor,
right,
but it's something to take in account.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I think that would be my idea.
Okay.
I think the Army does that for their promotions. And it's maybe some of the other military branches. The Air Force doesn't do it. I'm in the Air Force. So they may do it at the higher ranks, but as an NCO, I've never seen that.
So a couple questions for you before we get into your career specifically. First of all, what do you think the biggest challenges right now are for law enforcement?
Challenges, one, social skills. We are starting to lose. Well, we ain't starting. We've lost. We have lost social skills, the ability to talk, which that is 99.9% of our job.
Do you see a difference? You've been on for almost 19 years. Do you see a difference with this younger generation?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
This is a job that if you think you're never going to get into a fight and you're always going to be able to use your words, you're wrong. You're going to get in a fight. You need to be prepared for that. And two, we are so heavily pushing de-escalation. I think we've pushed it to an unsafe point where it's time to handle business and our officers are not seeing the signs and they're trying to de-escalate and they are causing a hesitation in themselves. When you cause hesitation, you increase injury and the potential for injury. So all of this hesitation that I'm seeing is we end up using a higher use of force than if we would have handled business when we could have up front. So that is one of the biggest things I'm seeing with the social skill stuff is, yes, they're trying to use their words, but really how does a 21, 25-year-old try to relate to a 40-year problem between a couple and they have no way to relate? And here they are trying to de-escalate when the guy's got his fist balled up, he's starting to reach towards a pocket or something like that.
Yeah.
And me, old school, I'd already tackled him. They'd already been on the ground. I just slapped him across the face, done something. And you just, sir, you keep getting this sir sandwich stuff. Sir, no, don't. And I'm like, handle it. Like now we've gone to a taser or pepper spray or baton when you could have just taken him down on the ground,
right,
and put, little joint manipulation, put him in cuffs and dust them off, good to go.
Yeah.
But now we've escalated because we hesitated, and it may even go to deadly force. You never know.
So you say joint manipulation, which is interesting because you are a purple belt
Yes.
in Jiu-Jitsu,
Yes,
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I think you have this philosophy or this thought process that essentially everybody in law enforcement should have a minimum of blue belt.
Yes.
Why?
100%.
Why?
With grappling, 100% of non-compliant arrests go to the ground. And what's the old school thing that we used to say as cops? You never want to go to the ground. Well, guess what? 100% of non-compliant cuffing is on the ground.
Yeah.
And if you are in the water and you don't know how to swim, or you're only treading water, well, you're only going to get by just enough until you get hurt. So with jiu-jitsu and grappling, you will have one, confidence in your training. That's when we start to get hurt. When we don't have the confidence in our training, that causes hesitation. And that's where you start to see that hesitation with officers. The reason they see the domestic violence guy that's been in this 40-year, terrible relationship, and he starts reaching towards his pocket or balling his fist or blading his stance, and they're not doing anything is because they're not confident in their training to go hands-on. And grappling will give you that. Now, I'm not saying you have to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
I just favor Jiu-Jitsu. There's wrestling. There's, catch wrestling. There's judo. There's a lot of other options grappling-wise, but you need to be comfortable doing that stuff because, one, it's going to keep the bad guys safer. It's going to keep you safer, and it's going to keep everybody else safer. It's a weird concept to think, but knowing that you have the ability, you tend to not use it nearly as often. How often do you ever hear about a UFC guy out in the streets being tested, and they're just so humble? No, sir, yep, you're right. You'll whoop my ass. I get it.
Right.
Because they know the damage that they can do to people.
Yeah.
If you just take jiu-jitsu for 6 months, going twice a week, you will be able to handle about 95% of the people out in the population. That's a weird thing for people to understand. So in policing, you have to get to that. It's a profession.
Yeah.
So to me, if that's your profession, I would, just like you want to be proficient at shooting, you need to be proficient at taking people into custody safely and with confidence. And that's what jiu-jitsu will give you.
Well, it's an interesting concept because, and I know you said, hey, it's not necessarily jiu-jitsu. You could do wrestling, you could do whatever else, but it's an interesting concept because one of the questions I wanted to ask you is about standardized training across the U.S. Could you ever do that? And one of the things is, let's just say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, everybody's got to be a blue belt. Well, it's pretty standardized. You can do that pretty easily. But what do you think about the concept of standardized training across the country? Would that work?
In certain things. Okay. Use of force, yes. I think use of force standardization would be wonderful. But now you got to get all the states to agree on, because there's some cities in Texas that won't let you use a closed fist, which is insane to me because you let them use a knee strike.
Yeah.
You let them use elbows,
right.
but you won't let them use a closed fist.
Right.
Now, for officers out there, do not use a closed fist. This is a recommendation on a grounded subject. Why? Because y'all's aim sucks and you end up punching the ground or a forehead and you break your hand.
Yeah.
Don't do it. But standardization will work for certain things, but policing culture, not even policing culture, the culture of your location isn't the same, and the priorities aren't the same of the citizens.
Yeah.
What works in New York City is not going to work in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
What works in Dallas, Texas is not going to work in Los Angeles, California. The cultures are too different.
Yeah.
And the demands from their citizens are different.
Yeah.
So how do you standardize certain things? I don't think you can. Use of force, I think, can be standardized.
Okay.
I believe that could be standardized. I'm trying to think of some other, the mechanics of arrest. But again, we're still kind of getting into control tactics is really what we're talking about.
Right.
So I think in control tactics, I get so mad when I see officer trying to hold a guy's hands behind his back, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, use the bar hammer, use the bar. Like in my head, I'm like, and some people may call it something different, but they're just holding a hand on the dude's back, and they're just trying to use that, and eventually they worm their arm, and I'm like, see, there's no standardization. They don't even know the technique that I'm talking about that would keep them in maximum control by themselves.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's it. You can standardize certain things. I just think there's certain things that you can't.
Okay, let's get into your career. Tell me about growing up. Was there something? Well, first of all, tell me about growing up. Where'd you grow up?
Okay, grew up in Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
And are you wanting to know what drew me to policing?
Eventually, but
Okay.
tell me a little bit about like your parents. What did they do for a living? Did you have brothers and sisters?
So I grew up in Flint, Michigan. My mom and dad never got married. So my dad, they tried to make it work like while I was maybe up to a year old. Not compatible people. They actually broke up. Then she found out she's pregnant like a few months later. And then they tried to get back together. So grew up without my biological dad. He was down here in Texas. He ended up moving and became a cop down here, which is ended up being the department that I would work for eventually. So I had that. My mom did eventually get married when I was probably 7 or 8. to my stepdad, who's since passed away. Great guy. No complaints on the stepdad front. But he worked second shift my whole life. And so I basically grew up with just my mom.
Okay.
You know, it's one thing to talk to your dad on the phone and come down during the summers and whatnot, and then have your stepdad come home and try to be the dad when, you know, you're already asleep. And, you know, so I was pretty a lone wolf. I did get my half brother 7 years later, but by that time, there's such a separation in age. We were just so different.
Yeah,
we didn't talk. We didn't hang out. I had my friends. By the time he was old enough to even be somebody to play with, I had my friends in the neighborhood. So I was the typical neighborhood wandering child, going house to house. Hey, you guys got anything to eat? You know, like just a shithead. Did a lot of Dennis the Menace things. Had, you know, some dope dealers and gang members and stuff around the neighborhood. I remember one named Kavika. Another one named D. D actually taught me how to, I was getting picked on. Kids stole my shoes. And D was teaching me how to throw. He was a boxer. He would box at the Golden Gloves gym.
Oh, wow.
But D was always like in the street.
Yeah.
So he was teaching me how to throw my hands a little bit. I was little. I was a little guy. I didn't grow until like my junior year of high school. So I'm 5'11" now, but I was 4 foot nothing for the longest time.
Right.
Growing up.
So it was a rough neighborhood growing up, or?
No, my neighborhood itself wasn't. I look back, it probably was rougher than I'm willing to admit. Okay. You don't know. It's like the Matrix. I tell everybody, Flint's like the Matrix. You don't know how crappy it is until you get out of it.
Yeah.
Like looking back, Flint was rough. Now I grew up on a suburb of Flint, Mount Morris, which is, you know, our shitheads would go over to their side of town and their shitheads come over to our side of town. Beecher was right there. And so there was a lot of elements there, especially when I was old enough to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were hanging out in Flint all the time. So I will say my childhood, I didn't see a lot of really bad things.
Okay.
Until I got a little more freedom with, you know, friends getting driver's license. So about high school age, that's when I really started to see the world.
So what kind of student were you? Were you crap student?
I was a social butterfly.
Okay.
I did just enough to stay eligible for baseball.
Okay, so would you consider yourself a jock, or were you just?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. But I wasn't like, I was friends with everybody, and I was kind of like the anti-bully, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
probably kind of where my police personality came from.
Okay. Where do you think that came from? The anti-bully part.
I don't know. There's nobody I could look back and that I had an influence. It wasn't, not saying my mom was a bad mom by any means, but it wasn't like she gave me a mentality like, you don't let anybody pick on people. Like, I don't know.
Huh.
Knowing my dad as well as I know him now,
Yeah.
that's kind of how he was.
Okay.
Growing up, I found out. You know, he was kind of the neighborhood bully type guy. Now I wasn't fighting in the neighborhood. I was fast and quick with my mouth, so that was my thing.
Yeah.
Talk shit and get out of there. So, people would bring me around. Like if somebody was trying to bully, and I would use my mouth. I would, you know, I had the yo mama jokes. That was huge when I was a kid. So just dissing the hell out of whoever was trying to be a bully.
Well, that's interesting then. So so you don't know where the anti-bullying came from. Where did you get your verbal skills growing up?
Always being out and about.
Okay.
Sun would come up, I was gone. As soon as the street lights came on, I would test the limits to see before, you know, the standardized mom alarm was them yelling out the front door.
Yeah.
Then so I was gone until that would happen. So it was a different time.
Oh yeah.
And
no,
so
absolutely.
I would stretch the limits of how far away I could get every single day.
So crappy student, your sport is baseball?
Baseball, hockey. Yep.
Okay. So when you get into high school, are you getting into more trouble, or are you just seeing more because you're having even more freedom because of the car?
I didn't get caught.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I didn't get caught.
Okay.
I was doing dumb stuff, being around dumb things. but wasn't getting caught.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah. I won't go out there and say that I was out committing felonies. I wasn't, but I was around friends that were.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So growing up to the time that you get into the military, was there anything that happened that said, hey, I want to do law enforcement?
So when I think I was 12 or 14. I was somewhere in there. I wasn't in high school yet. I know that. Playing basketball in the street. I lived on a dead-end road, by the way. So there wasn't like I had flow through traffic.
Yeah.
We had one of those rollout hoops. So, it's a basketball hoop on a pole that had wheels and a base that you filled up with water. So I roll that. We're outside playing ball. I got some of the neighborhood kids with me. Cops roll up and 2-man unit. Hey, throw me the rock. And they want to play ball with us. I was like, oh, shit, this is kind of cool because the cops, we don't like the cops around where we're at. But not to the point we're going to be disrespectful. We would say fuck the police like in our friends group, but because it was cool. NWA, all those guys were big at the time anyway. And that was the culture growing up. Nobody liked police. Like, you just didn't. Out of my friends, nobody liked police. So that was the cool thing to do.
Let me ask you this, because as you're talking about your neighborhood and stuff like that, predominantly white, was it mixed?
Mixed. Yeah, it was
okay.
mixed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good mix. Probably more white, but it was mixed for sure growing up. And then it switched. As I got older, then it started to become predominantly black.
So it's interesting because, you talk about your verbal skills and you're having white, black, everybody. So you must have learned how to talk to everybody.
Everybody. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
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 So anyway, I interrupted. So 12, 14 guys come around.
Yeah. So we're playing ball. I throw him the basketball. Well, he pops my ball, stabs it with a knife. The other partner pushed our hoop down. Well, they were still very new. Those rollout hoops, like, they weren't good. They were crappy basketball hoops. So they didn't have a spring on the rim. They have nothing like they have today. So it messed up the backboard. And I had to tell my mom. I didn't think she was going to believe me anyway. So I was like, yeah, the wind knocked it over. So I lied about the whole incident, but I called my dad. And I was like, I can't stand cops. I know you're good, Dad, but because he was a cop down here by then. I said, but I was like, I fucking hate him. I can't stand him. This, that, and the other, just being a little loudmouth kid, and tell him what happened. He's like, I hate that happened. He's like, they obviously mistook you for, because what they told us was, we told you to stop playing basketball on the road. We're tired of getting calls over here. It wasn't us. We never dealt with them. It must have been on one of the other roads. And I lived in a typical grid system. Yeah. So it had to be some kids a few blocks away that maybe had a through street, because we didn't have, like I said, we don't really have much traffic where I was. Yeah. You could play street hockey, game on. And you didn't have to worry about cars a whole lot. So he said, you can either be a part of the problem or part of the solution. And that did not stick with me then. It must have buried itself in my brain, but at the time I wasn't wanting to hear it. As a kid. Yeah. Dad, you don't know. So you don't know what you're talking about, Dad. It's different here. Meanwhile, he grew up in Flint too, so he knows. And I would say it was probably around 16. I kind of knew when I got to high school, because you got to start thinking about what you want to do. Yeah. And so I was like, I'll do law enforcement. I just wasn't sure what, or military. I was like, I want to do some sort of service. Mm-hmm. And I always loved family reunions. When we'd get together for family reunions, the people that everybody respected and gravitated to was the military members, the firefighters, the police, our nurses. So somebody that was in that first responder world, they got all the respect. They were the ones everybody was around talking to. I wanted that from my family. That was the thing that was important to me, was my family respected what I did. I didn't want to be the one that they talked bad about.
So that's fair to say that's where your service came from?
Yes. Yeah. Not my dad being a cop. Mm-hmm. I did have some other cops in the family. My grandfather, who was, he ended up being fire chief in our small city around us. Always looked up to him. And so there was influences for sure. And then I knew I wanted to do something of that. Medical didn't really sit well with me, because I didn't like blood and all that gross stuff. I'm not afraid of it. I just think it's gross. So I was like, I don't want to deal with that. And then my grandpa had a fire that I went to with him. He were volunteer like style fire department. So you responded in your personal vehicle. You just threw your light on top and went. He had a siren on his truck. So I was with him at the time. We were out going to the store or something. I had to go with him. So we responded to this house fire that I could feel from across the street in his vehicle.
Yeah.
And the medical vehicle pulled up, and that's what he kind of specialized in at the time, was he was the medical guy. And he gets in that truck while my dumbass gets out of the truck to go see what he's doing. And he tells me to go sit in the front. So I go sit in the front. I was like, all right, this is cool. I'm sitting in a different firefighter vehicle. And he yelled at me, "Don't look back here." Well, what am I going to do? Of course, I look back. I could smell something. I was like, what is that smell? And I look back, and it's a little girl around my age. She got burned up pretty bad. And it was after that, I was like, not going to be a firefighter. That's for sure. So scratch that. So it kind of just left policing of some sort.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, at 16, when I really started to kind of get serious about it, because everybody's getting on you about your grades. And like I said, I did just enough to stay eligible. I was not a good student, but when I applied myself, I did just fine.
Yeah.
So I asked my dad, like, if I wanted to get in policing or the CIA or something like that, like, what should I was like, I'm not good at math. Let's just put it that way. I'm not good at math. I'll tell you that right now. He's like, well, math doesn't really come into play. He's like, you need to be a good writer. You need to know how to write. He's like, so I would focus on English. So here I am, a DC student, somewhere in there, just enough. And I'm wanting to go into advanced English my sophomore year. And they're like, no. So I'm going to my mom. I'm like, I got to get in here. So she goes to the school, makes a plea. I have to sign like this contract that I'm going to do it. So I take advanced English then and did it every year. And the reason I wanted it so bad was our high school teacher was a former college teacher in English, but he said their writing skills were so bad that it inspired him to go to teach at a high school level to cut the problem off at the pass before it was getting to the college level. So he was to this day, one of the most influential teachers I ever had. Shout out to Mr. McBride. Rest in peace. I think he's dead. But anyway, so I took advanced English every year after that, got an A. So I knew it wasn't because I'm dumb.
Right.
It was just I had other priorities. Mostly my wife, who's now that I married my junior high sweetheart, basically.
Yeah.
So we've been together ever since, which is rare in law enforcement.
So why the military then?
So you have a gap between 18 and 21 before you can even be a cop. So I tried my hand at college. I was like, I had went to the recruiters in high school. I was going to be a Marine, had my mind made up. It's the toughest, it's the hardest. I want the challenge. I was stubborn. And then I decided to try to walk on for baseball up at Saginaw Valley State University and started up there, did a year, got that freedom that I never had before, and ruined all of that. So then I was doing full-time, then I went to like 3/4 of part-time or full-time, and then I dropped to half. Now I don't have any scholarship money now, so I gotta try to work. So now I'm painting for my uncle, and that was pretty good money at the time for a kid. Well, now I'm slow. Now I'm down to like a class. I'm doing one class and I'm working full time. And one day we got paid like $4,000 for one week of work. It was crazy. I'd never seen that type of money. And a light bulb went off. I'm sitting around like 7 other guys that are in their 40s. I remember thinking they were so old, and I'm that age now. They're in their 40s. They're having no medical coverage. And I remember hearing them complaining about, I got to take my kid to the doctor and spend, $2,000. There's half the money they just made, and they've got no coverage. And they're stuck in this trap of, I just made $4,000 on this one job. But they're not talking about during the wintertime when you're not making anything.
Right.
In Michigan, nobody's getting their house painted in the middle of the cold. So I'm like, this is the trap. This is where they got sucked into this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now, my uncle, he's different. He owned the business, so he's making money no matter what.
Right.
But if you're just painting, like, you're not really making a whole lot. Not in the long run. And you're definitely not getting health benefits or anything like that. So I knew college wasn't going to work out, and I wanted my college paid for. So that's when I was like, now maybe I should revisit this military idea, because I can get my 4-year degree. I can be a cop in the military, so I can get on the job experience. And then when I get out, I can claim all that. Hey, I was honorably discharged. I've got my degree. I've got, police experience.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's smart.
Followed it to the letter, and it worked.
Why'd you go with Air Force versus Marines, though?
No swimming. That's one. I'm not a big swimming fan. So there's no swimming. I heard that the security forces for the Air Force and the security forces for the Navy were the two best policing trained. So it was one or the other. And I told you I don't like to swim. So it was a pretty easy choice.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get out of the military, and then you go to Saginaw, Michigan, please?
Yes. So I get out, go to Saginaw, Michigan. Was a cop up there for a few years. And then the pay was terrible. It was a small department, so no movement. And I'm talking to my dad about all this cool shit he does at his, almost 2,000 man department. And I'm like, they have what? They have a SWAT team. They have K-9. They have NARC. They have all these different things. And I'm like, I'm hearing about this stuff from the surrounding agencies where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at the pay, and I'm like, they're not making much more than what I make now. But I hear the pay down in Texas. I'm like, that's like triple, if not almost quadruple what I'm making. I was making as much as a Walmart supervisor. I was like, this is not like, so that's when I started looking. I was like, I applied all over the nation. I wasn't trying to go where my dad was. I didn't want to live in his shadow. It was, again, some of the young, stupid arrogance, cockiness, like mindset that I had.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at, that's a really good department.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to live in my dad's shadow. I don't want to be his, his legacy. And what if I don't live up to it? That was the other part. What if I'm a crappy cop?
Okay. Let me ask you a quick question about the Saginaw, Michigan thing. So the military police seems like it's a very controlled environment. You're on base. You're doing all that. But once you go to Saginaw, well, first of all, why do you end up at Saginaw?
First place that would hire me.
Okay.
I just put, like I said, I didn't try to go back to Michigan.
Okay.
I just applied to everything. I was using USA Jobs. I was using all these things.
Okay.
They were the first ones to hire me.
Okay.
And that was it. Because it's scary separating from active duty.
Yeah.
Because you no longer have a paycheck.
Right.
So I was like, I need whoever will take me. They were the first ones.
Okay. So it's kind of a standard question that I always ask is, do you remember your first day or night on patrol by yourself? Did you have one-man patrol cars in Saginaw?
There, no. You were always with other people.
Okay, so you were always with
I was
somebody.
always with somebody. But
Okay.
my first time where I'm at now,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome.
No. Okay, so you get to the place where you're at now. So you're not scared. You're not. I mean,
No, no, I wasn't scared at all.
because you already had all this prior military
Yes.
and police and everything else.
Yeah.
Because I talked to a lot of guys that are like scared out of my mind.
No, I was pretty pumped. Yeah, I was pumped. Again, it goes into one, I'm still young. I tell people all the time, like, if you would have asked me at 18 to 21 if I was ready to be a cop, I'd have told you yes. But me now at 42, looking back, I wasn't ready to be a cop until I was like 30.
Oh.
So, it was ignorance.
Yeah.
That is why I was so excited.
Yeah.
It was me not really understanding the totality and not knowing the limits to what I actually knew versus what I thought I knew.
Well, going back to the beginning of our conversation, hypothetically, you become chief. Do you have any worry about hiring somebody that's 21 years old?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Well, would you hire somebody who's 21?
I don't think I'd have a choice. I think the way the federal regulations are, I don't think you can discriminate based on that.
How do you deal with somebody? Because
I think background checks and interview process would be a good standard.
Mm-hmm.
I think the argument could be like during the interview process, we didn't feel they were ready.
Yeah.
So you could scrub through that way. But when you think about it, prefrontal cortex isn't even finished developing until you're around 25 for males.
Yeah, it's interesting because, for me, I started when I was 21.
Okay.
So, Yeah, I just think some people are ready for it, some people aren't, but how do you differentiate?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. I have run across a few that I'm like, this kid's got it. He's spot on. Like he's legit, and I trust him.
Right.
But that's not most of them.
That's not most of them. Yeah. That's interesting. Look, you started with military police, you go to Saginaw, and then I noticed it was back to military police and it was IMA. What is that?
So I am a individual mobilization augmentee, which means I'm a reservist, but I'm attached to an active duty unit versus being a reservist that does their 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year.
Okay.
And they are a part of a reserve unit.
Okay.
So the reserve unit's going to be a bunch of dudes that do other jobs for the rest of their normal days.
Right.
And then they all get together to drill once a month. And hey, Bob, what's going on, Frank? You know, how's the job? You know, and they do their thing. I wanted to feel like I was a part of something still.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm a part of much in a reserve unit. That's just my personal feeling.
Yeah.
So I found out about the IMAs being attached to an active duty unit, and you get to control your schedule. So I don't do 1 weekend a month. I do 24 days straight. I do my full year requirement all in one stretch.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm actually helping an active duty unit that are out there doing it 365, 24/7. Shout out to the 802nd Lackland Security Forces. The Legion, baby. So when I go out there and do that, it's all cops. It's all security forces. So I have all these young, hungry airmen that want to be cops. And let's face it, being a military cop is like quasi-policing. It's not.
Yeah.
You're doing a little bit. You're definitely getting the training, but it's not the best training. So when I show up, they look at me and they say, "Oh, that's Levine. He works up, there, and he's a real cop. Like he trains us in some cool stuff." Like,
yeah.
So that's what I do. I go there and I'm training hundreds of airmen every time.
So you're still a reservist now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
I just
awesome.
got back.
Wow.
March 24th?
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, March 19th. Yeah, I just got back. I did I try to do my time right after my wife's birthday, February 21st. So I'll usually book my time like the 24th of February and just do 24 days straight.
Okay.
So yeah, you got a happy wife, happy life.
That's right.
But the reason I did it, insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, city insurance where I'm at was like $850 a month.
Now
I pay $205 a month.
Yeah, it's
so
big deal, right?
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "But you're in the military." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm in the Air Force. It's kind of the military."
How do you end up at your department that you're at now? Is it because of your dad?
No. I applied like everybody else. I have a different last name.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't. That was my mom's little jab at my dad. She wanted me to pick when I was old enough if I wanted my dad's last name or her maiden name.
Okay.
And by the time I was old enough, I was so used to Levine.
Right.
I was like, I ain't changing my name.
Right.
And my dad's last name's Gilbert, and it's kind of lame. So I was like, it's not as cool.
So I take it last name, no help from your dad getting on the department?
Correct. That was the goal. I told him, I said, listen, I want to stay under the radar.
Okay.
And I almost did, through the beginning part of the academy.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew. And then one figured that out. And then it spread.
How'd they figure it out?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think he knew and he didn't really put two and two together. Because you got to remember, I visited when I was a kid all the time. Like during the summers, I'd go down and visit my dad. So I'd see these guys. Well, I think one of them, it triggered like that because I look just like my dad. That doesn't help me.
Okay.
A lot. I'm a taller, better looking version of him. That's what I tell him. And my dad's a badass too. He's a nationally ranked judo practitioner. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a badass.
Is he retired now?
Yeah, he's retired.
Okay.
Yeah, he did 30 years. He did an extra 5 years to work with me.
Oh.
Yeah, so we got to shag calls together and
That's
stuff like
awesome.
that. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It took a while for people to get it. This is kind of a side story. He is a lieutenant. So he worked second shift. I worked third shift. I would text him or send a message over the MDC. Hey, there's a call over my beat. Let's go take that one. So I'd call out. Hey, send me that call. Well, now a lieutenant calls out. I'll be with him. This team doesn't realize he's my dad. And they're like, no, save the lieutenant. I'll go. And so I'm like trying to tell him, Okay. And what do you say?
Yeah.
So they're showing up, and then it took a minute, but they figured it out. Just like in the academy, they figured it out. But then they stopped taking calls with us. So it's giving us our moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go from patrol to property crimes as a detective.
So I went from patrol to bike unit, which is still property crimes, or I'm sorry, but it's still patrol.
Okay.
But it's a specialized unit.
Yes.
So yeah, I was a bicycle, not
was
a
that?
motorcycle.
How was that?
Oh, it was great. I learned so much. I learned that bikes are one of the most underutilized tools that police have, especially if you take that bike to an area that doesn't normally have bikes, which was probably a little bit of my problem. I can't sit still, which bikes are great for that.
Yeah.
But then my brain gets, I'm a think tank. That's really how my brain works all the time. I'm like, all right, where's the gap? How can I fix that? Well, one of the gaps I was seeing was nobody suspects a bike in an area that doesn't have bike cops.
Right.
So let's go to areas that don't see bikes and see what we can sneak up on. I had a guy try to deal drugs to me. He's on his phone like this. Roll up to him. He's under a streetlight. It was like very movie-esque. And he's like, what can I do you for? And I was like, I'll take a dime. And he's like, and he just starts reaching in his pocket. Meanwhile, my partner had snuck up behind him, grabbed his arms, put his hands behind his back. He's got dope on him. He never looked up from his phone.
Awesome.
It was hilarious.
Awesome.
We caught we say 60s. We caught stolen vehicles on our bikes. We caught burglary actors on our bikes because they don't hear you. Even when they see you, they can't figure out in their brain what they're seeing.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a cop to them. So, I mean, I saw a guy he looks up at us, looks back down, he's opening it, he's trying to get in his car, and then eventually punches the glass as I'm almost there. And I hear the glass break, and so I jump off my bike. I was like, get out of the ground, get out of the fucking ground. It was thrilling. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
So, yes, I was a bicycle cop, and I had a blast. I loved it.
So why'd you go to property? Why'd you become a detective?
I promoted.
Okay.
So we can get in that topic too.
Okay, so no, wait a minute. So a detective is a promotion?
Yes. Where I'm at, you take a test.
Okay.
And detective / corporal. They're the same position, but a detective is working cases. A corporal is typically in the field somewhere.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
So what did you want to talk about with getting promoted?
So where I am currently at, our retirement kind of got jacked with really early in my career. Like the first year I was there, had this really sweet retirement, and then it got, the way the retirement went, the switch forces you to promote to have a decent retirement. So, excuse me, what does that do to the department now? Now you are forcing officers to promote the younger officers because they're not going to get that high 3 anymore.
Yeah.
Now they've got to get like a high 6. Well, if you're going to get your high 6, you got to have, and your overtime doesn't count. That was the 2 things that got taken from us. So now you've forced those people to promote up higher, faster.
Mm-hmm.
So what is now we are creating a trend in that department that you're going to have less experienced leadership that doesn't know the job nearly as well as what they used to, because you could have a 20-year officer.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that was a mistake. I don't blame that. That's not our chief's fault. That's just city policies and stuff like that came into play.
Right.
That's way beyond me. I don't know how contracts and all that crap work.
Huh.
Never been involved in the, POA stuff or FOP, or that's not my. I let the pros deal with that stuff. That's not me.
Yeah.
I just want to go catch bad guys.
Yeah.
So that was a problem, and now that's what I was at. Now I had a career already start. Like I wasn't a fresh snot-nosed rookie that needed to promote. It was, it's time.
Right.
So I went and did a specialized unit, the bike unit. Did that for I think 3 years. Had my fun, and I was like, all right, it's time. It's time to promote. Well, in that process of wanting to start studying and stuff, then I got taken to the academy, and I became an academy instructor because of my control tactics background. So I put off promotion. Did that for 3 years. and then promoted.
Okay.
So I was, like I said, that's where I became a TCOL instructor. Learned, use of force report writing. That was one of my specialties. Control tactics was my big thing. Teaching, all of the joint manipulation stuff, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And then I promoted to detective.
So patrol, bike, detective, then as we talked before we started recording, typical PD where now you're going to promote and be a sergeant. Now you got to go back to patrol.
Yeah. Yes. So.
Okay. So again, we were talking about this before. What's your goal? Now you're a sergeant. What's your goal now?
My goal is to be, well, it's kind of twofold. I wanted my patrol time as a sergeant. I just needed to learn that, how to deal with, chaotic scenes, guiding your troops, mentoring. That was my big thing. I wanted to help these guys get where they wanted to go. That was my job, is to be, to provide them the tools they need to succeed. Tell me what you need. That's what we need to do. So I have those sit downs.
Okay.
And I did. I sat down when I got there with every one of my officers individually. Who are you? What's your goals? What do you want to do in policing? Wrote it all down. And then I just sat back and observed. Probably for 3 months. Observed what they did. All right, guys. I had another meeting with them individually. This is where you want to go. This is how I see you policing right now. Here's how you get there. Tell me what I can do to help you along that way. Let me know. Some of them had goals, and I'm like, I see where your goals are. You're not doing anything to get there. Here's how I would go about that. So giving them that stuff and trying not to, I want them to be the cop they want to be, and try to give them some tips and tricks along the way to help them be the cop they want to be, versus micromanaging and trying to make them the cops I want them to be.
Yeah.
I think that's another big problem in being a supervisor. So my goal was to be the supervisor I always wished was out there. And now that I've accomplished that, and I was given a mission, I was put in our highest profile area. It's kind of an entertainment district, thousands of people on the weekends walking in the streets, high potential for mass casualty type things. So if there's a shooting there, if there's stabbings, whatever, it can cause just chaos. And they have happened, not mass shootings, but shootings and stuff.
Yeah.
During those times. And a high potential to go hands-on is probably one of our most saturated areas for blue teams. When officers have to use force, we call them blue teams. Well, I'm a control tactics guy. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. So now I'm watching my guys try to go hands-on and seeing what they're doing. And now I'm fixing those, not fixing them, but teaching them how to do it better. And that's fun for me.
Yeah.
Again, teacher's heart.
Right.
So doing that stuff. And since getting my team, and, a few jumped off fairly early. They wanted to go try other parts of patrol or whatever, whether it was my style they were worried about. You know how it is.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say after about 3 or 4 months, no one's left my team. So that was, as a leader and growing up through the military, you realize, like, when nobody leaves a team, that's a good sign.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so nobody's been leaving the team. So I feel like I'm doing something right. We've managed to, my mission that was given to me was get guns and stop the violence, because it was getting bad. And in the almost 2 years we've been there, we've dropped violent crime like 35%. And we've gotten, 300 plus guns off the streets.
Wow.
Not legal guns, bad people having guns. So
yeah,
getting that's been a big part of doing that. And then now my goal is to get into the part of my career that I've been kind of guiding towards, which is the real-time crime center era. It's a whole new way of policing. And
okay, so what is that?
Okay, so real-time crime is cops are out in the field, right? And they get dispatched to someplace. And then inevitably, while they're there, they have to do some sort of investigative work, right? So let's say I'm out on a burglary of a motor vehicle, we'll say that. And I hear the officer get there. Hey, dispatch, King 720, I'm on scene. Cool, gets annotated by the dispatcher. All right, King 720, send me another unit. Okay, cool. Send another unit out there. All right, I'm looking at the scene. Oh, there's an ID that looks like it's been dropped on the ground on a cell phone. That happens sometimes with burglars. It's funny. So I see a registered sex offender ID on the ground. So grab that. Now what do I have to do? I got to go back to the car and I got to look this up. Well, I'm not processing the scene at all.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go see if there's other cars. Well, what real time started to be was a guy sitting behind a computer and a radio, and the officer would request, hey, can you look this guy up for me? Here's the name, date of birth, while I continue to process. So he's looking that stuff up in real time.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. So now real time's like, yep, okay, your guy actually lives 3 houses down from where you're at right now. His vehicle is this. Oh, well, that's not the vehicle I'm looking in. Cool. Well, okay. Let me look on Clear and see what because he's a registered sex offender. Let me see what his phone number is. Boom. All right. Can you call that number? Boom. Calls it. Phone lights up. Oh, this is his phone. And that's his ID. Well, guess what? Now we got a suspect on the car. Let me go knock on this house. Hey, did you know your car was burglarized? No. Can you come out? Like, do you know this guy? And you're like, oh, he lives down the road. Okay. We got a little bit. Now real time just helped solve that crime while you were able to do what you were doing. So the main purpose of a real-time crime center is to support the officers in the field,
right?
Or investigators, if you got investigators that are out there. Well, that has morphed over the years, and I've been there throughout this process. I'm actually a board member for the National Real-Time Crime Center Association. Now it's morphed into LPR cameras. So you got LPR cameras, license plate reader cameras around the cities a stolen vehicle goes by them, it reads the plate, and that alarm goes off. Well, where's that alarm go to? Well, now it goes to the real-time crime center. So they can start researching, seeing where that car is, where its direction's at. So the officer doesn't have to look that stuff up. The real-time can just jump on and say, hey, unit, 720, that vehicle's a quarter mile from you heading in your direction. And then it can send that picture right to your car. So this is
a super cool idea.
Right. And then you start getting into city cameras. So now we're not just talking about an LPR system. Now you've got city cameras with pan, tilt, zoom that are watching public areas like my entertainment district. Now we get a shooting. King 720 got shots fired over here. Da, 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 da. And they real time will jump on. They'll start looking at the cameras if they're not already looking, because usually on the weekends when it's really busy, they're already helping, watching the area. Real time, I need you to tap into my camera. Boom. They tap into my body camera so they can watch live stream and help me be a second set of eyes, because I can't look everywhere at once. And then they can get on. Hey, we backtracked the cameras. Your shooter's wearing a red shirt, black pants, currently running southbound from your location. And cool. Hey, units 5, 10, 15, and 13, you guys are he's running your direction. Set up a perimeter, because guess what? Real time can see your vehicle, they can see your radio, and they can see your body camera. So now they're watching a map, and they can set up a perimeter for you that the supervisor no longer has to worry about. So they are supplementing what we're doing there on the street, and they can live stream everybody's body camera. So if those officers are alone, that is when you want them to tap into those body cameras. So now they're looking at that, they're seeing a mapping system, and they're able to communicate. That's one newer aspect of what we can do with that. Now, the next thing that you have is the ability we've got a shooting where there's actual crime that has occurred. We've witnessed it. Now we qualify, at least in the state of Texas, to maybe start doing facial rec. So you've got now I'm very big checks and balances. I don't like Big Brother. I swore oath to the Constitution. So my job is to make sure that we don't overstep as well.
Right.
Our requirements to use facial recognition are amazing because the checks and balances. It makes sure we don't overstep. Has to have a case number associated with it. Has to be in real time. Otherwise, if it's a post investigation, it goes to a third party that is not law enforcement. It's the civilian side, and then they will do facial rec. That way, it's controlled. So you're not looking up your ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend or any of that crap, right? Trying to figure out who he is. So we have that ability. In that, we also have the ability we're trying to regionalize. What does that mean? Now at our real-time crime center, it isn't just our department. Now it's all the surrounding agencies. They are sending a man to work in our real-time crime center. So when it comes to communication between cities, anything that borders our city, we've got a real-time crime person there with us in the office. So if we have a bad guy that's fleeing from our city to theirs, they're like, hey, Frank, he's coming your way. Who knows their city better than them?
Yeah.
Cool. It isn't, hey, dispatch, we got a stolen car. It's about to go into X city. Can you get them on the radio and let them know that it's coming? That takes forever. But now we'll have a direct link.
Yeah, that's
We've
slick.
just opened up the communication channel. It's not this drinking through a garden hose. It's a fire hose of information that's going through, and it's in real time.
Yeah.
And we just had an incident where we had a road rage person shoot at a car. 50-something minutes later, he went into the next city. That real-time operator from that city was in our real-time crime center because of the regionalization that we're trying to do. And he was able to communicate to his guys, have them in the area, and the guy came right to him, and they caught that guy.
Wow.
How often do we ever catch these road rage shooters?
Right.
You know, within an hour.
Yeah.
Like, if you catch them at all.
Super cool idea.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's groundbreaking stuff. And I've got ideas to make it even better. I want to create a field team because we end up finding more crimes than we can even dispatch people to.
Yeah.
So that's the amazing part, because you'll have a city camera that's watching intersection. Well, guess what's across from the intersection? A food store that has dope dealers, and it's a chronic violent crime area problem. Right. Well, we'll see them making hand-to-hands. We'll see guns being transferred. We'll see shootings occur, all because we're using a camera in a public area. So now, if you don't have officers available, you're basically watching felonies occur and you can't do jack about it.
Right.
So what I want to do is have a team that's dedicated to the real-time crime center so they can go out and handle that stuff. Just float around the city and basically a scalpel.
Yeah.
And do it intelligently. So they could have undercover cars. They could go up, see what they can observe in the area. If we're like, okay, they're dealing over here. So they can be watching from a distance, or watching from the cameras, whatever it is. Okay, they're getting into this car. Okay, the UC follows them off. We don't knock them down right there and make the area go cold and risk a possible, violent encounter. We have the UCs follow them off, knock them down a few miles down the road, and now they never are the wiser. They think they're getting pulled over for a basic traffic incident. And you knock them down over there and get them out of the car because you already know everything.
It's a cool idea, man. You'll have to let me know you get that position. I'll come back down and chat with you about that.
Yeah. I'll find out here soon. I just had the interview yesterday. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you very much for the interview. Can you tell the audience where they can find you on Two Cops and a Donut?
Yes. So we have our website, 2cops1donut, all spelled out, .com. So you can find us there. And if you go to the platforms tab, you can find all of our platforms. But we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Clapper, which we got Clapper because we thought TikTok was going to get taken down. And then it ended up getting taken down very briefly. You can find us on Spotify and Apple. That's our two main audio podcasts, because we do more than just podcast. We have live streams. So we'll do live streams. That's all on our YouTube channel. But we also do them on Instagram and TikTok every once in a while. Let me see. You can find us on, I think that's it, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. My phone's right here. I can actually just, I don't know why I'm being difficult. Twitter, which we only have like 500 followers on there. Threads, we've got probably around 400,000 followers right now across all of our platforms. Oh, LinkedIn. That's another big one.
Really? Yeah, I actually saw some videos on LinkedIn.
If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, baby. That's our hidden gem. We've got, that is like a concentrated fish in a barrel for your demographic, because that's where all my cops, first responders, military, that's where all of those guys that follow us, they're on there.
Interesting.
So you can find us doing all that. Like I said, the podcast, when we do interviews like you and I are doing right now, that's Apple, Spotify. We'll post clips of that, but we don't post the whole video.
Okay.
Those are kind of like teaser clips to bring you in to listen to the audio. So that's what we do. And then the live stream's always going to be available on YouTube. And then you can always catch our reels and stuff like that on Instagram and the other things.
Cool. Thanks, Erik. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, brother.
All right, man.
Cool.